If you are new to Monday.com Sales CRM and you want to learn everything there is to know about the platform in a short amount of time as possible, then this video is for you. I've condensed 5 years of Monday.com implementation experience down into just this one video here. So hopefully it will save you plenty of time. By the way, if you need any help setting up Monday.com for your business, we would love to help. So please check out the link in the description below. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm logged into our demo Monday.com sales CRM system. Now, my plan with this video is to walk you through the basic setup of Monday Sales CRM first, and then we'll go into some more nuanced details later on in the video. So on the left-hand side here, you can see we've got our different areas of our Monday.com sales CRM system. We've got leads, contacts, deals, accounts, and a few other bits and pieces. Now, to start with, and where any business starts really, is your leads. Now, many people have different definitions of a lead, but typically the way I would describe the leads area in any CRM system is like a dumping ground. Think of the leads area as you just chuck any old data in there that could potentially be useful for your business, but in no way, shape or form are they qualified. And the purpose of the leads area is kind of like a pipeline of qualification as opposed to the pipeline of the sale, which is what the deals area is for. And I'll come on to that later on in this video. But to start with, we have our leads. So any lead gets thrown into your Monday.com system, and then it's your job to qualify them. Now, you can use a qualification structure called BANT, which is budget, authority, need, and timeline. So do they have the budget? Do they have the authority to make the decision? Do they have the need? And is there a timeline in place on when they're looking to make the purchase? But I'm not going to get into too much detail on the sales side of things, but obviously we focus on the Monday.com setup itself. So we clicked into our leads, we've got new leads here, and then we've got some basic information about that particular lead that's pre-populated by Monday.com when you get the platform. You can see we've got the lead name here, so Robert Thompson. We've got the status, whether they're new, attempted to contact, contacted, qualified, and unqualified. We've got a button to move to contacts, basic information about the company, their title, their email, phone number, and the last time you interacted with that particular person. So really rudimentary information. We can change the titles of each of these columns by doing so here. So I might just put business, or you could put account and just hit enter, and you can see it's really simple to change. Now, if you want to add additional columns, and these are essentially different data points that you want to track for your lead, it's very easy to do so. You just press the plus button on the far right hand side here. We have core lead information. So this is information that Monday.com suggests that you should have for a lead. So for example, if we tick owner, that means we can assign an owner to that particular lead. So if you have a lead team or a sales team, you can assign someone to that particular lead. As you scroll through, you can see location and comments as well have been ticked. Now, if we don't necessarily need their title, we can untick an option from the core lead data points that we have available to us. Now, in addition to our core leads, we have the more columns area. Now, this is more general information and pretty standardized across the whole Monday.com ecosystem. We have different column types, so status, drop down, text, date, people, numbers. And then if we hit more columns, you'll be able to see that there's loads of different options on different column types that we have within Monday.com and within Monday Sales CRM as well. So checkbox, link, item IDs, phone, location. This just takes a bit of getting used to. Just test it out. You can see what you think of them. Try different columns. It's very easy to, let's say, add a status column to a board. You can mess around with it, and then you can go ahead, press a 3-dotted button, and you can delete it down the bottom here and then get rid of it. So there's no stress on kind of testing things out and trying and testing things as you go. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of suggestions on what we do for clients throughout this video. So to start with, what I would do is I would change the new lead from being in this funny orange color, and I would just put it as the default label. Now, the reason we do this is because every time a new lead is created, or every time a lead is created, it's going to be by default a new lead. So there's no point in having a status column. What Monday.com have done, which I just cannot wrap my head around, is they've got an automation that says when an item is created, set status to something. That something was originally new lead. Now, every time an automation runs, it costs you an automation token, I think they're called. So to save you on your tokens, just delete this automation and just follow the instruction that I provided based on setting the default label as the new lead. Now, we can go ahead and delete this. Why can't we delete it? It's because this one is selected. So if there is a status column with the color, you cannot delete it. You can deactivate it. When it's unselected, you can delete it. And then you can see we've got new lead, attempted to contact, contacted, qualified, and unqualified. Now, what I would typically do in an instance like this, and this is very obviously a lead process, is I would set up groups associated with each of the status options. So we've got new leads, and then that's our new leads group. I would add a new group and remind myself it's attempted contact to contact. Hit enter. We then have, what else do we have? Contacted, qualified, and then I'll have unqualified. So contacted, qualified, and then unqualified. And then hit enter. Now, the reason we do this and why it's so important is for reporting functionality later down the line. And again, this is not stuff that Monday.com make obvious to you. So you do obviously have to learn it through videos like this. So it becomes more obvious. But yeah, you would need a lot of this information, or the way this configuration is being done, for reporting purposes down the line. So I'm just going to set these colors as random here. I'm not going to get too obsessed over the colors. And then what you can do is run automation. So now we've got a basic status option set up. We can go when status changes using automation functionality, then move the item to group, and you can continue down the groups. So I'll just do that for a couple of these. So we'll go to automate in the top right hand corner and go create automation. And then what I want to do is say when status being the status column, changes to qualified, then we want to move item to the group qualified and hit create automation. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So now we go ahead, change the status to qualified, and that item should, and there it has, moved to the group qualified. So that's quite simple. Again, really important for reporting purposes later on down the line. So make sure you implement this. Now, another thing I would typically do is I would have two date columns. So I would add a date column, which is the date created. So I would call this date column date created. And then what I'll do is I'd hide the column summary. And then I would restrict the column editing, which prevents other people from interacting with the date created column. And then I would run a very simple automation using automate in the top right hand corner. And I would say when item is created, then we're setting the date of the item that's created to today. So now we know, as you can see here, that every time a new lead is added to our system, I'll be able to get the day that it was created. Again, reporting purposes down the line, I can see the number of leads generated on a weekly basis, monthly basis, daily basis, if you're that lucky. And it makes things a lot easier. And that's not readily available in some of the setup with Monday.com. Now, in addition to this, if you want to get a little bit more technical, you could add another column, and this is another date column. And then I would have this as date qualified or date /qualified, because either they can be qualified or unqualified. Again, same principle applies of restricting column editing, and I would hide the column summary. And then we would run an automation that says when the status changes to qualified, then set the date to qualified. Now we can add, in addition to when the status changes to qualified, move item to qualified, we can add another step in the automation process, or what's called a recipe within Monday.com. So I'll just go ahead and search set date, and then we go set date to un/qualified. So now we're saying that when the status changes to qualified, we will the date un/qualified column will automatically populate. Now, the reason we would look to do this is because then we can see when it was created and when it was qualified, and then we can run a formula column that gives us the number of days between the date it was created to the date it was un/qualified, which gives you an average time to convert a lead. I know we're getting technical, but it's possible. So I'm just going to show you that as well. So we will go ahead, press the plus button and search formula. And then we would go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use Monday.com's AI assistant, and it's really, really simple. It's actually a very useful tool if you're not so familiar with writing formulas. So you select the AI assistant, and I'm just going to say, give me the difference in days between the date created and date un/qualified column, and hit enter, and it should, let me just check, yep, that's worked perfectly. So I'll just press insert and then set formula, and then if I select, obviously it's May 21st here, if I say this is 22nd, it gives me 1 day. Now what I call this is TTQ. Again, I hide the column summary, and then I would restrict the column editing. We don't want people interfering with our formula columns. Otherwise, that can mess up a lot of things. So these are just some of the basics about the leads. We've added the groups. We've added some date created stuff. Obviously, we know now how to add different column options. Hopefully, that was all fairly self-explanatory. Now, up the top here, we've got different options. We can search for leads if we would like to. We can show where a person is assigned to something. We can filter as well using all of the different data columns available to us. So, for example, if I want to filter and say, show me where the account it contains or is equal to is, for example, Apple, then it's going to show me all of my leads from Apple. It's very, very easy to use this filter functionality. I would always press the arrow on the right hand side. Otherwise, you're presented with this funny looking screen here. And this is confusing to me. I've never really got my head around it. I would always go to switch to advanced filters. You can add filters, you can add and or parenthesis as well, and you can group differently as well. You can also group by. So if you have, let's say, hypothetically, we add a new column or columns, and let's call this label. This is just a standard label column. It's almost identical to the status column, and we'll just reposition that. Just hit refresh. Something has happened. Where has it gone? And there it is. It's down here. So I'm just going to try and drag that again, as you can see. And then these could be our different sources. So I'm going to say Facebook ads, hit enter. I might go, I don't know, LinkedIn ads. I don't know if the people run those. And then I might just do YouTube organic, for example. And then if I hit enter, and then I can select, this one was Facebook ads, this one came from LinkedIn, and this one, obviously, because it's qualified, YouTube, naturally. And then what I could do is group by, and then I could group by my source. Let me just change the naming from label to source, hit, oh, wow, terrible spelling. There we go, group by. And then using the drop down menu, I can group by my source if I want to. So now I can see my leads by the different sources, but this is in no way managing a process. So that's the nice thing about using this group by function, but you don't want to create the groups for a situation like this. This is bad practice for managing a process within Monday.com. You always want the process to represent the groups, but if you ever want to group by, you can do. So that's quite straightforward. Now up the top here, you can press the plus button. You can add a Kanban view if you would like to. So if you prefer to look at your different lead stages, as you can see here, new lead, attempted, contacted, qualified, unqualified, you can easily drag and drop accordingly. It's quite straightforward. On the Kanban view here, you've got status, divide by. You can divide it by groups if you'd like to. You can show the battery in the top right hand corner. Again, entirely up to you. You can customize your Kanban view if you'd like to. So if there are data points on here that you also want to add, let's say date created, you can go ahead and drag that on there as well, as you can see. Or if I want to remove the source, I can do. So that's quite straightforward. And then you've got show column name. So that's the actual name of the lead. And then we've got display cover image as well. So if you've got a cover image or a file associated with the lead, you might do. I mean, that's pretty rare, but if you do, then you can have that shown on here. So hopefully that Kanban view makes sense. And the next thing we need to take into consideration is obviously the actual qualification. Now, Monday.com kindly leaves us with this button to move to contacts. Now, I truly despise of this button. I might be the only person. I just think it's ridiculous. If you are qualifying a lead in typical CRM terms, if I look at Salesforce or Dynamics 365 or Zoho CRM or HubSpot, all of these different products on the market, when you qualify a lead, it automatically creates a new contact, a new deal, and a new account. So a contact is a person, a deal is the actual sales process post qualification, and then the account is the business. Now, the reason we use leads is obviously we have it as a dumping ground, and we want to really protect the data in our contacts, deals, and accounts. We only want useful information to actually move over there. The problem is if you press move to contacts as a lead, then it will essentially push or take this data from the leads board over to our contacts board. Problem number one with that is we can no longer report on the information that was previously in the leads. So every time a new lead gets qualified, that data leaves the leads board. Thus, we cannot see a qualification percentage between qualified and unqualified. And also, just because it's moved to contacts doesn't mean you need to manually create a deal and manually create an account, especially if you have data points associated with an account on here and also data points associated with a deal. So a great example of that is the account name goes where, who knows? And also, let's say that their inquiry was, let's say, label. It was a specific inquiry for a specific service. So if they've inquired about service 1, service 2, service 3, then that really should populate on the deals board, not the contacts board. So data disappears, which is a nightmare. We want to prevent that at all costs. So as part of this extensive video that I'm walking you through on how to use Monday Sales CRM, I'm going to walk you through how to go ahead and prevent this from being an issue. Now, I will warn you, this is quite complicated. So first and foremost, we're going to add a new column, and it's going to be called the item ID, okay? Item ID. And then we're going to go ahead and select item ID. and then press got it. So now we have an item ID. Every single lead has its own unique reference number, which is really important. And then what we would do is we would go to the contacts, the deals, and the accounts board, and we would create a text column called UUID, or you can call it what you like. And then what we want to do is every time a lead status changes to qualified, then we want to create a record in contacts, a record in deals, and a record in accounts. But that UUID from the lead gets pushed over to the contacts, the deals, and the accounts, all separately. And then there's a very clever automation that we can run that says when an item is created, and if there's a unique ID that matches this in this board, then they automatically connect with one another. So we solve many problems with one slightly complex automation, saying that as opposed to all of the data going to the contacts, it creates a contact, it creates a deal, it creates an account. They all link to one another very, very nicely. So I'm going to come on to that in a moment later on through the video as we go through the different areas of the system. Now, more general information about the leads board, you can go ahead and press this button here, and this will take us to an overview of any particular lead. So up the top here, we've got the different pipeline stages, and you can configure these using the cog, and it will give you some options on the stages that you want to see. You can move them around. So new lead, attempted contact, contacted, qualified, unqualified. You can set the final phase label. So close, set label to complete button is being qualified. Label for incomplete button is unqualified. And then you can choose up to 3 columns to display in the top left-hand corner here. So let's say I want to see their company name, email, and phone number. And then you can choose the colors of the bar as well. So if you want to go for like a nice purple, you can see how that changes. So that's interesting. The more exciting stuff is on this function here. This is called the emails and activities widget within Monday.com. Now, emails and activities do exactly what they say on the tin. We can email using one of our own email accounts directly from Monday.com to our leads. So it acts in the same way as, let's say, Outlook or Google Mail, but obviously it will still log in your Outlook account or your Google Mail account. Or you can add an activity associated with a particular lead. That could be a phone call, a note, a task for the future, and it's really, really easy to do. Now, emails, you'll just hit new email, top left-hand corner. You can connect either a Gmail or an Outlook account. Now, if you do not have one of those 2 accounts, either Gmail or Outlook, bad luck. Pretty much is the end of that conversation. I know people have there's all sorts of different platforms out there. If you don't have one of these 2, you can't connect. So that's the end of that conversation. But if you did, you would select Gmail, you'd go through the kind of sign-in process, probably some 2-factor authentication, maybe even 5-factor authentication. And then your email's connected and you can send and receive emails directly from Monday. So if you send an email from Monday and someone replies, it automatically logs against that particular lead. We can also add activities. So an activity is, like I said, a meeting. You can log a meeting, call summary. You can add custom activities as well. So if you want to be, let's say, a task, and then, I don't know, food, sure, I'm hungry. Press save activity. And then this is an example activity. Now, one thing to note here is if this is in the past, then it's going to create on the activities board, which I'll show you in a bit, in the past. So it will be marked as completed. However, if you set this activity as in the future, then this will be something that you need to do, or an active task that's not yet being completed. So just mind that. You can also attach files, basic bulleted list, change the text format if you want. You can also mention other people in your Monday.com account from here. You can also import columns. So you can see you've got item name, username. This is just placeholder information. And then we can have templates. So if you want a task template, you can go ahead, press save as new template. I'm going to call this example template, and then you can decide who gets to change or use this template. So let's say I want to share this template with everyone. You can do. You can see that every time I click it, it populates the information. That exact functionality applies for emails as well. So it's exactly the same. You can create really fancy email activity templates when you're sending emails, and then it just automatically populates from there. So I'm going to go ahead, use my template quickly, just press example activity, press add, that's for the future, press add, and you can see this now logs on our pipeline of activities associated with this particular lead. This would obviously get longer and longer the more activities associated with the lead, and you can scroll up and down. Finally, on the right hand side, you've just got basic information about that particular lead. You can change this stuff if you want to, but again, I think Monday, the general setup works well here. Now, also, if you want to have internal conversations about a particular lead, you can use the updates function in the top left-hand corner. So I often compare updates to Twitter or X now. So let's say I want to at someone else. Let's say I'm atting myself and say this has been done for this lead and hit enter. I can do. That person will then they'll get or receive a notification, I guess. They can then like it, they can then reply to it, and you can have a threaded conversation about a particular lead from the actual Monday.com system. So this is quite handy for internal communication, especially maybe not on leads, but on deals. If there's a lot going on for a particular deal, this is quite an easy way of managing it. So I'm going to close out of that. And then what we're going to do now is I'm going to delete this move button because it just frustrates me that it even exists. And then we're going to go over to the other areas of the system. So hopefully leads are making sense. Now we've got contacts. Now contacts are people, like I explained earlier. You've got every single contact realistically should be associated with an account. And then you can also associate a contact with a deal. You've got their email, their phone number. If there's other information you want to track about a particular contact, you can do. So you can press add column. You've got, let's say, contact type. This is just a core contact piece of information. Customer, partner, lead, qualified. Again, this is slightly misleading because why have a lead section if the type could be a lead? Qualified lead, potentially you might look to keep, but you can delete and add different types if you want to. You can add additional columns, title, priority, if they're high, medium, or low priority. You've got the company, although that's not necessary if you've got a connection column. It might be necessary if you're using the conversion button on the leads board, but we're going to avoid that in this video. And then we've got comments as well. So these are all just like the standardized column templates for Monday Sales CRM. But again, if you want to add more columns, you're more than welcome to. You can go as crazy as you like with the data points that you're tracking for your contact. And then it's pretty straightforward. You've obviously got the active and inactive contacts. There doesn't seem to be a standard status option for this for whatever reason. So either just don't have it, which is option number one, or you could go ahead and add a new status column. Add status, drag it to the front here. We'd probably hide the column summary, and then green naturally is going to be active, red is going to be inactive, and we hit enter. We can delete the ones that we're not using. There we go, delete. Just remember that the default label, we don't necessarily know when a new record is created whether they are active or inactive, so you can have it as blank. And then we can just run a basic status in the top right hand corner that says when status changes, then move to active or inactive dependent on the status selection. So that's kind of contacts in a nutshell. Filters and other functionality remain the same here. You've got some views that we might come on to later in this video. Can't promise it depending on how long this video is going to be, but basic information nonetheless. Moving on from contacts, we then have accounts. So accounts are obviously businesses. You've got Google, Apple, Amazon here, the big ones. To add an account like any other record, you can add an account here, just press new account, and then you've got their relevant information again. So you'll be able to see which contacts are connected to your accounts, and you can go ahead and if you want to, you can add multiple contacts to an account. You've got their industry information, you've got a description, number of employees, headquarters, location, and then obviously other standardized options, and then the more columns we can add as well. Note that you've got just companies as one solid group here. I think that's probably the easiest way to manage companies unless they are active or inactive, but that's entirely up to you. Typically contacts become inactive and active. Companies are always going to be companies unless they go bust, which whatever, you can archive them at that point. But yeah, so that's just a function to be mindful of, and just like the basic setup. Again, adding this and adding any new record inside of your system can be done pressing new account or by adding one down the bottom here as so, new company, and hit enter. So now we've gone through leads, contacts, accounts, and deals, and hopefully you're getting the idea of how this works. With leads, contacts, and accounts. We've not gone through deals. Now we have deals. So deals board is our actual sales pipeline. So once we have a qualified lead come in through the system, we're then going to go ahead and qualify we're then going to go ahead and run them through the actual sales process. So this is, as you can see, the different stages: new, discovery, proposal, negotiation, won, and lost. Now again, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move new from there to the default label. Just position that there, and then if I can do, I would delete that. And then we've got new, discovery, proposal, negotiation, won, lost. These can be whatever you want them to be. It's entirely up to you, and just hit apply. But what I would, again, recommend strongly doing is making sure that the groupings match your status labels for a process. So in this instance, it's going to be new deals. We've then, active is not necessarily active. We've got discovery deals, deals. Just bear with me while I run through this. But again, the importance of this is if you do not have it, you cannot report on it as easily. So the basic way in which Monday Sales CRM means that your reporting functionality after the fact is going to be extremely difficult. And then you've got negotiation. Yeah, enter. I'll reposition this up here. And then we've got close won, right? Yeah, and then close lost. So unfortunately, every now and again, we do lose deals. Closed, lost deals, and that needs to be recorded accordingly. So I would put that in red, green, negotiation. I'll leave it as is. Now, of course, you can create some automations that says when status changes to this group, move it to when status changes, move it to this group, etc., etc., etc. That's entirely up to you. You've got the owner of the deal, you've got the deal value, you've got the contacts associated with this particular deal, and then you've got the accounts as well. So contacts obviously being people, and then accounts obviously being the business that's associated with the contact. Now, the way Monday have set it up initially is they've made it so when the contact's selected, so let's say I remove Stephen Scott, the account goes as well. So sometimes you can have accounts independent to contacts, and sometimes people just prefer to mirror the account over from the contact. It doesn't matter too much. There are some reporting limitations later down the line, but it's not of major concern, to be honest with you. So new discovery proposal, we've got all of this information, the expected close date. You can see here, we've got the close probability, which is marked as 90%. And if we change this, we've got the forecast value formula column, which obviously takes into consideration the deal value times the probability, giving us our forecast value. The nice thing about this is you've then got the expected close date. So then you can report on forecasted value per month based on the expected close date or per week, however you want to do it. You've also got last interaction here. And then you can add additional columns. You've got the core deal column, so close date, actual deal value, deal creation date. And then we've got more columns as well. So other just general columns that you might want to track for your deals board. Okay, up the top, we've got this sales report function here, and this is just basic reporting, but I'll come on to that on the actual sales dashboard itself. This is less important. And then we've got the pipeline. So this is exactly the same Kanban view style that we set up earlier. What you probably will notice is a couple of the status options are hiding. So I would add them as well. And just make sure you go ahead, and when you press that, just press save to this view so it updates, and then you can drag and drop your deals accordingly. Now, if you've got different people managing different deals and you don't necessarily want them to be able to see the other deals, you've got two options. If you're on the professional version of Monday Sales CRM, you can just do this, which is slightly more basic. You go filter, drop down menu where owner is, and then me dynamic. That means that when I sign in, it's dynamic to me. When someone else that signs in, it's dynamic to their deals. If you're on the enterprise version of Monday.com, there are permission functions on every board, in fact, where if someone is not assigned to something, they are not able to see it at all. The difference being that if you are on just using the filters, you can move away from the filters. Like you're not obliged to use that particular filter. So then people will be able to see other deals. Of course, this depends on your sales environment, etc., and whether you want people to be able to see other people's deals. Now, the same principle applies on the deals board with regards to updates, activities, information, the sales pipeline, sending emails. You've got updates up here, and then we've got this quotes and invoices thing. I'm going to come on to that later on in this video. And then you've got the activity log. Again, this is the same for every single board on Monday. You can see the activities associated with this particular deal or any area within Monday.com as well. So hopefully this has been a comprehensive introduction to leads, contacts, deals, and accounts. Now, I mentioned earlier that we wanted to create a special way of managing our leads to contacts, deals, and account setup. So I'm going to run you through that now. You're more than welcome to skip ahead if you'd like to, but I'm just going to go to the contacts board. I'm going to go to more columns, and I'm going to go and search for a text column. And then I'm going to add this. I'm going to call this UUID. Okay. I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward for the time being. I don't want to complicate everyone too much. And then we'll do the same on the deals board, same text column and UUID. Okay. UUID. And then finally on the accounts board, we're going to do the same thing and go to more columns and then text column and then UUID. Cool. Hit enter. So now what we want to do on each of these boards is we want to say when an item is created on this board, connect this item where this column matches this column in another board. We'll do that using the automation. Sorry, I'm laughing because the more I say it out loud, the more complicated it sounds. But if you go to create and then go to where, and then all you need to search is that on the automations function. You've got where an item is created in this board, connect the item where this column matches this column in another board by this logic. Just hit use template. And then we can go where this column is going to be the UUID matches this column in another board. Let's select our accounts to start with. Are we on accounts? Let's select contacts, this column being UUID, and then the connect obviously being the contacts, the connection between the contacts and the accounts. So what we're saying on the accounts board is when an item is created on the accounts board and the UUID is exactly the same as a contact record on the contacts board, then they're going to automatically connect. And then we're going to do the same for deals. So we need to do this twice for deals. Actually, no, we only need to do this once for deals because we're directly connecting to the contact, not the contact and the account. So go to automate in the top right hand corner, go to create and just search where this item is created. And then this column is going to be UUID. On another board, it's going to be the contact. This column is going to be UUID, and then connect via the connection and just press create automation. So now we're pretty much there. The last thing we need to do is go to our leads board here, and then we need to go to automate in the top right hand corner, and then we need to run through the status of creating these different items within Monday.com. So when the status changes to qualified, I'm going to delete these two. The first thing we want to do is create item in board, and this board is going to be our contacts board. Let's start with contacts, okay? And then the item that we're creating, this is where we can map the columns from our leads board to the data points on our contacts board. So the name's probably going to be the same, the status won't, the email and phone number would obviously map, and then we need to make sure that the UUID is the item ID, okay? And just press done. And then what we need to do is we need to create a buffer. So between item contacts, we then need to create a buffer of move item to group, and then let's just say qualified. So the reason we're doing this is so it doesn't happen too suddenly and Monday.com can't keep up. So then we're going to go ahead and create another recipe or step, and it's going to be create item in board, and then it's going to be on the accounts board, and then the item, and obviously the data we would map is business related information or company related information. So whether we have any of this on here, I'm unsure, but this is why it's so important. You can't just push all of the data into contacts, otherwise you'll lose loads of information. So we need to make sure we're mapping to the right places. So I think on the name, it's going to be the company name, which we did actually have. Account, which is what we called it. I'll leave that as enough for the time being, but again, just make sure the UUID is the item ID and just press done. And then finally, we're going to set the date, which is the date qualified or date closed, set date date un/qualified to today. Again, giving Monday.com a little buffer, and then we'll press the final plus button, and then we're going to create item in board, and then the board being the deals board, and click into that. And then the item name, owner, let's just go name. Yeah, let's leave it as name dash account. There we go. Owner can be owner, that's fine. Last interaction can be the same, that makes sense. And then the item ID just needs to map as well. Just press done. And then all we need to do is hit update automation. Now, I appreciate this was quite complicated, but it's absolutely worth it if you are planning on using Monday.com as a proper CRM system. So if I now change the status to qualified for here, what's going to happen is it's going to create a new item on my contacts board. It's then going to create a new item on my accounts board, run the automation. It should automatically connect to my contact. As you can see here, I've not done anything. And then on my deals board, it's created a new deal, AA, automatically connected to the contact, and all of the information is exactly where we want it to be. I know, why can't Monday just give us this for free, right? You had to watch my videos to tell you this. And then we go back to leads, and then if we ever need to change any data points, we can do. So we can click back into that automation, update the item information. So let's say the industry map to the industry, and this map to this. And if we're adding more columns on the leads board, then we can update the associations wherever we need to. So that's fairly simple. Hopefully we're now making sense of the whole Monday.com system. There's not so much more I want to show you on the leads, contacts, deals, and accounts area within Monday. There's a great deal more to show you throughout the entire system, and obviously I'm going to come on to that throughout the continuation of this video. But hopefully you're feeling okay with the progress we've made so far. Now, the next thing that I wanted to introduce you to is actually activities. So I'm just going to move this up a little bit to just sit under accounts. Now, activities is actually a really fantastic feature within Monday. What you've got is every time a new activity is created, as we did earlier from this area here within both the deals, contacts, accounts, wherever you want to create a new activity, it automatically populates on the activities board, as you can see. So what I would typically do is I would change the account activities to maybe open activities, and then, oh, if I could spell that correctly, activities, and then add a new group and just press done activities and hit enter, and then maybe change the coloring. So there we go. So now we can group by whether an activity has been done or whether it's open. We can set up some automations that says when an item is created, and if status is equal to done, move item to group done activities. And then obviously when status changes to done or whether it's open, it goes to the open activities. The important thing to note about this is, like I said, if we create a new one or a new activity, it automatically populates on this activities board here. So we can see all of the activities, what it's related to, when the start time is, when the end time is, and the actual related item. So it connects both to contacts, deals, leads, accounts, and activities itself, if you want to create an activity about an activity. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like now. So if I go to my deals board, I'm going to call, this is obviously our AA, I'll just call this Nick Boardman. Hit enter, and then we'll go ahead and we'll create a new activity. So now if I go ahead and press add activity, and I'm just going to log a meeting that we're having, very important meeting, and hit enter without any thought to anything else. If we go to our activities area, you can see that's automatically added. The status is done. The reason being is because when I created the activity, it was in the past, 11:52 to 12:22. However, if I want to go back to my deals area and add another activity, and in this instance I'm going to create a new task. This is going to be future task, very important. Start again, task important. There we go. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, the date function is really important here. So saying that this is going to be in the future, press add to this. You can see with the dotted line that this is a future task. It says upcoming up the top here. And then we go back to our activities area and you can see that this one's been added. The difference is the status is equal to open in this particular instance. That is of course due to the fact that this task is open. It has not actually been completed yet. I would strongly recommend managing all of your tasks, all of your activities through that function that I've just shown you. And then you'd easily be able to see who it is, who the owner is, the start time, the end time. Further information, if you want to, you can rejig the automation to also bring in the description of that particular task that I wrote out. Like I said, this is a very important task, whatever. You can pull that across as well. The other way you can manage this is through your My Work page, which can be found up the top here. If you go to more and go to My Work, you'll be able to see all of the tasks that have been assigned to you, and all of the activities and all of the different functions. So I can see today I've got activities, this week I've got activities, next week I've got activities. If I go to the customize in the top right hand corner, I can hide the done items. I can choose the people that I want to either see or not see in my to-do list, shall we say. We've got the boards that we do and do not want to populate through. So in this case, it's just the activities. The status column is obviously the status column we're using. We've got the date column, which is the start time, the priority column. We want to hide done items, and then I'm not going to worry about the color matching. We can view it as a table if we want to. So we've got context view, which is a bit nicer, easier on the eye. We've got compact view. We can hide the empty groups if we don't want to see anything that's, so obviously you can see I've got nothing later, so I don't need to see that. Or you can use a calendar view within the My Work page. So if I go to the calendar view at the top here, it's going to show me all of the tasks in my calendar. Now, personally, I prefer this table view. This is the one that I would use as like my to-do list if I were to be managing my sales tasks. This is definitely the easiest way of doing it. So every time a salesperson logs in, they go to My Work page, they'll be able to see everything that they need to do this week, next week, today, tomorrow, blah, 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 what they've not done. And then if you want to, as a manager, you can go to people and you can see, right, show me David's tasks, and then you can pull up David's tasks if you want to. So hopefully we're making even more progress. Leads, contacts, deals, accounts. We now have activities and the My Work function within Monday Sales CRM for managing your activities. I then want to bring you on to client projects, products and services. Now, this confuses me a lot because Monday Sales, Monday.com work management. So either they want you to manage everything within the Monday Sales CRM and they don't want to sell you more licenses, or they're getting confused themselves. The reason being is Monday.com work management is typically designed for project management and not necessarily for a sales system of any kind. But the fact that they've added client projects as part of the standard package within Monday Sales CRM means that, okay, sure, they're happy for you to manage your projects within Monday.com. Now, if I'm being totally honest with you, this is not great project management setup at all. And again, it's just different boards. You've got the new projects, the status, the deal it's associated with, the contact it's associated with, the account it's associated with. There is a basic automation set up on the deals board that comes with Monday.com that says when the status changes to 1, it creates a new client project. So I'll just show you that for the AA-Nick Boardman. So hit 1. And then you can see here, create a new project on this board. This is in no way, shape or form an optimal project management setup within Monday.com. If you want to learn more about project management within Monday, check out the link above or link on this video. That will give you a comprehensive breakdown of how to manage projects within Monday Sales CRM or just any part of Monday.com using a high level setup. But again, basic information. You've got sub items here. If you're not familiar with the sub items, these are smaller tasks associated with the larger item. These are being managed here. You've got obviously the priority of the project, the timeline, the status, the deal it's associated with. You've got a Gantt view as well. If you want to play with a Gantt view, again, this isn't really a sales CRM now. We've gone into full project management. So I'm not inclined to cover that in this particular video today. If you want to learn more about a Gantt view, check out the link above as well. I've got videos on how to use a Gantt view as well. Cool. So now we've got client projects done. We've got products and services. Now this is a very new function within Monday.com, and this is where you can add, or Monday Sales CRM, should I say, and this is where you can add new products or services as like a menu, I guess. So product number 1, you can add a description, and then we can add a price, and then add a SKU. So let's say it's 10. And then we could have a type, let's say it's inventory. We've got some core item columns and more columns. This is very new. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of products and services are. I think it's got something to do with quotes and invoices. We'll have a look at that in a moment. But we'll walk through it. I'm learning while you're learning. This is great. We've also got a dashboard of our products. So the number of available products, the product types, files gallery. You could add a numbers column here, for example, that tracks your stock level. Although I doubt there's going to be a function within Monday.com that automatically deducts stock level from the system when you're adding new products or using products in a quote or an invoice. I know I've been brief on both client projects and products and services. Products and services we're going to learn about. Client projects I don't think is suitable for this video, although it is included in Monday Sales CRM. But one important thing to note is obviously the sales dashboard. This is absolutely vital for any CRM system to be able to report on the data within the system. Now you can see here, this is just what Monday.com has provided for us. So we've got active deals, the forecasted revenue, average value of won deals, the actual revenue. We've got the deal status distribution, actual revenue by month, the number of deals won. We've got an activity tracker, which is quite cool. Forecasted revenue by month, forecasted revenue by stage, and so on and so forth. A few different nice little widgets that they've added on our behalf. Now, in order to connect different boards to a sales dashboard, because as you can see here at the moment, this is only feeding in deal related information, we can go to connected boards in the top left-hand corner, and then we could go ahead and let's say we want to pull in lead information as well, we can do. Now, because there's already data on here, just make sure you untick add newly selected boards to all existing widgets, because otherwise that is going to ruin your reporting setup. But hit done. So now I've added the leads board information, or at least the lead source information, to our dashboard. I can then go ahead and create widgets about our lead information as well. So let's say I want to create a chart and I just want this to be our lead qualification percentage, and hit enter. So if I go to the 3 dotted button, go to customize, then go to chart type, and then we can make this a pie chart, and then the labels for, in this instance, we just want the board to be selected as the leads board. I don't want to pull deal data into my lead widget. And then the label is going to be the status. The value is 1 by 1. The count of items, which is exactly what I want. And then the grouping is I just want to see the difference between the leads that are qualified and unqualified. So what this is showing me is 100% of our leads go through qualification, and we've never had an unqualified lead. Now, if I go back to this board here and I just remove our Robert friend, and while I'm here, I'm going to change the status to unqualified. And then if we move back to our sales dashboard, you'll see that this lead qualification percentage, 33% is unqualified, and 67% is qualified. Again, we can create other widgets as well. So if we add another widget and we want a chart widget and we want to create a chart, and this is quite a basic one. Let's say we want to see the number of leads created per month. That's going to be a standard bar chart. Our x-axis is going to be our date created, which is what we created earlier. And this is why it's so important for reporting purposes. What I'm going to do is untick the boards, the deals board, because we don't want to see deal information flowing into our chart here. And we've got x-axis, date created, y-axis is count of items, so the number of items created per month. Then customize, if we want to change the colors or the text, we can do. Show only top and bottom items, we can show cumulative data. Then if we want to, we can show empty values. So you can see here there are 2 records that have not got a date created in them. And then we can add benchmarks as well. So the nice thing about benchmarks, especially with sales functions, sales systems, is this is what we're reaching for. So the benchmark line is, let's say, 1,000. No, 1,000 leads might be overkill. Let's just go with 10. And then we'll go, say this is our minimum. Yes. And then we'll set this as red. Then we could add another benchmark line. Let's say optimal. Actually, this would be, let's say 25 leads this month. Then we'll put optimal. There we go. And then we'll make this one green. And now we can see on our chart, let's just rename our chart. Oh, where have I gone? And then let's just rename our chart down the bottom here and said leads per month. Enter. So now we can see we've generated 1 lead this month. Our minimum is 10. Our optimal is 25. If I go to our leads board, and it's if only it was this easy to add leads, but if we just add a few more here, the automation's running for our date created. And then I'll go back to our sales dashboard. You can see that that information has now changed from 1 to 3. So 3 leads have been generated this month. Again, we can add further charts, add widgets using charts here up the top. We can customize this. So let's say we want to go slightly more complicated and we want to see the number of leads generated per month by source. So in an example like this, we would actually need to use a stack bar graph. The next thing I'm going to do is unselect our deals board, as we don't want data putting through. The x-axis is going to be the date created. So obviously bottom is date created. We're stacking by, in this instance, we're going to stack by the source. So where have these leads come from? And then we've got y-axis is the count. So now I can see here, again, we can customize, add some benchmark lines, boards, and then I won't worry too much about the groupings. But essentially this is showing me that out of the 3 leads that we've generated this month, 2, we have no idea where they've come from, and 1 is LinkedIn ads. Now I can change the stack by to expand by, or have it as an expanded stack. So then this looks slightly more separated, but what I would be mindful of is if you've got months and months and months worth of data and they're all expanded, it can get a bit messy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go back to our leads board, and I'm going to change this lead source, because this is one we created, to LinkedIn ads. This one can be YouTube organic, and then this one can be Facebook ads. And then go back to our sales dashboard. I'll scroll down and you can see how that changes. If we go to customize again, go to stack by, we can unexpand the stack mode. Again, this is a lot of information to take on board. So this is going to take a lot of messing around with and just testing and optimizing. But hopefully this is a good introduction to Monday Sales CRM. So now we've got through what I would argue is the bulk of the Monday Sales CRM functions. We've gone through leads, gone through contacts, deals, accounts, activities, client projects. We've touched on products and services is new. So we're learning about that. And then we have sales dashboards as well. Please test everything. You can't really get it wrong, and it's very easy to undo any mistakes or anything that you're not happy with within Monday.com. I'd argue that is the beauty of Monday versus these more expensive systems or more complex systems like Salesforce, Dynamics, HubSpot, Zoho, is to customize the platform is so much easier than it would be to do it on a Salesforce or a Dynamics or a whatever, HubSpot or Zoho. So you can't really get it wrong. I've got plenty of videos on my channel. You're more than welcome to check out on how to learn more about each of these advanced steps that we've gone through. Now, other things to note within Monday Sales CRM. I know this, we're still going. We've got sequences in the top left-hand corner. Now, this is exactly what it says on the tin. Email sequences within Monday.com. So if you want to create a sequence of emails when a new lead is created, this is exactly the place that you would want to do it. So to access this, we go to sequences in the top left-hand corner like I've done, and then we can create a new sequence. So I'm going to call this example sequence and hit next. And then it's going to ask us to select the board that we're going to pull data in for this particular sequence. So I'm going to select leads in this instance here. And then it's really simple. It's just a case of adding steps. So I'm going to send an automatic email. And then as long as I have my email account connected, I can write the subject, hey. I can use placeholder information. So hey, and it's going to pull their item name, which is their first name. And then I can do blah, 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 blah. This is why you should buy this particular thing. And then that's it. So when a new lead is enrolled, the first thing that's going to happen is they get this email. It's going to say, hey, and then whatever the lead name is, then it's going to send it across. You've also got email tracking if you want it. So email tracking is available. You can tick or untick it. And again, columns on the actual body of the email can be pulled through. So if you want placeholder information, it's very easy to do. So let's say I want to pull the account through, you can do so very easily there. You've got some basic configurations on bold, italic, underline. I don't need to walk you through any of that. You can link stuff. Just be mindful of like spam blockers and things like that. I'm not too well versed in how all of that works. Just be mindful of it. We can then add an additional step. So let's say I want to then create a general task. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll add a wait time. So let's say 2 days. And by the way, you can only do this in days as far as I'm aware, but I can reposition it after. So you can't do X number of hours later or whatever. I'm almost certain you can't. Yeah, looking at this, you can't. It's always going to be in days. So they're enrolled, they get an automatic email. 2 days later, a general task is created. This is a task. This would populate on the activities board associated with this particular lead, and it would assign to the person that is assigned to the lead. And then you can add another wait. So if we want to 1 day, and then we could add a call task. You can see here, we can also add a general task. We can also tell someone to send a manual email. Again, these are just different task types that we walk through using the emails and activities function on the leads board itself. Or you could send another automatic email. Pretty straightforward. So these are kind of our steps for email sequence. This is pretty straightforward. Again, this is not complicated, but there is and this is always the caveat with Monday.com. There are a lot of limitations. No, you cannot do conditional logic for your sequencing. No, it's harder to track. No, like blah, 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 blah. It's great as a basic, but the problem is, and what I find a lot of people want to then begin to overcomplicate matters, and that's where Monday.com begins to struggle. So moving on from steps, we've then got up the top here, rules and notifications. So this is stuff that we have to set up when we're setting up a new sequence. So we need to select the send email as, so the account associated, so either your Gmail or Outlook account. We've obviously already selected the board. We need to define the board columns. Now this is quite important as well, because obviously on the leads board, we had an email column, we had a phone column that's automatically populated, but you just need to select where the data is being pulled from. We then have a time zone and send window. So I'm based in London, so that's our UTC, well, that's our time zone. And then we can select when send messages on these days. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Let's say I don't want to send Saturday to Sunday. And then send messages at this time only between 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. or any time. So it's up to you. Again, not enormous amount of flexibility, but these options are available. And then we have some removal rules. So any reason why we should remove a lead or a contact record from the email sequence. So we would remove the contact if they reply to an email in the sequence, remove contact if they open an email in the sequence, remove contact if their email bounces, remove contact if they clicked a link in an email from this sentence sequence, and then remove contact if an email in this sequence gets an auto reply, and that's in beta. So I can say, well, if they reply, I want to obviously remove them. And then if their email bounces, I want to remove them as well. Now, one thing to note, and this has always been quite interesting, is you have to create a new status column on the leads board or the contacts board or whatever board this is associated with that delineates or defines what has caused the reasoning for the sequence to stop. So we would have to go to our leads board, and I'm just going to press save sequence. I'm just going to save as inactive. So these settings are already here. Go to our leads board, and I'm going to create a new status column, status. And then I'm going to say, we've got responded. I know this is crazy. Bounced. I'm just going to leave those two for the time being. I can't remember what the other options were, but I'll just delete these just for clarity's sake, and then press apply. And then we go back to our sequences. We'll open up the sequence we were working on, go to our rules and notifications, and then where's the option to change stuff? Edit sequence, top right hand corner. And then you can see choose status column, status 1, choose label. So if they have replied to an email, then we need to set the status as responded. Now you could use the lead status if you wanted to. Again, remove contact if their email bounces. So status 1 and then bounced. And you can see how this works. Now you can use the lead status, but just because a lead's email is bounced doesn't mean they're an unqualified lead. So you wouldn't necessarily want to unqualify them. But hopefully you'll kind of see what I mean by this. So you would have an open, and then you'd have an open on that status that we created on the leads board, you'd have an open option, and then it would set the status to open, so we would know what has happened. You've then got notifications. So notify me when it's time to make a call / send an email. That makes sense. You can turn that on and off. Or notify me when a sequence ended due to engagement. So this is obviously what engagement is, and then you would get a notification, which is both an email notification and just this alarm looking thing in the top right hand corner, and it would say this particular thing has happened. So we've got a notification recipient. So assign a column with relevant team members who will be notified throughout the sequence. If no column is assigned, notifications will go to the person who initiated the enrollment process or the owner of the sequence. My recommendation is to select the owner. So the owner of the lead. You don't really, just because I've set up the sequence doesn't mean that the person that owns the lead shouldn't be notified. So the people column should typically be the owner. And then obviously, because I haven't got an email account, I can't activate this. And then we can see all of the people in our example sequence. And then just press save. I'm just going to press save as inactive, but hopefully you get the idea on setting up sequences. Now we have our sequence. We have the number of steps, the number of days, the active people, total people, open rate, reply rate, click-through rate. We've got the last time it was modified, the status and details if there's missing data or if it's active or whatever else. And then I'm sure you're wondering, well, how do I enroll someone in a sequence? Couple of options here. So we can go to our leads board and we can either select someone, so select this person, and then we can add them to a sequence manually. Alternatively, you can use automations. So if we go to automate and then go to create and then just search sequence or sequence, right? Sequences. Yeah, this is the app you're looking for. You've got when, let's say, or I'll just click into it. When an item is created, enroll item in sequence. When status changes to something, enroll item in sequence, blah, 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 blah. When seeks run, but you've got all of these different options. But that you would just say when an item is created, they get added to like the introduction email sequence as a new lead, for example. And that's how to automatically add them. Or again, you can manually add them. So hopefully that covers sequences. If you need more context on that, have a separate video, but hopefully that gives you a good deal on how it works. Next, we have mass email tracking. So this is exactly what it says on the tin. This is slightly more straightforward. If I go back to my leads area and I select 3 different leads, so I'll select Stephen, I'm going to select Robert. What I can do is I can just mass email them. So I'll mass email, I select obviously the email account that I want to email from, and then I can schedule it. So in the future, or I can do it immediately, and then I can just send a placeholder. So write out an email, it could just be a template, placeholder their first name, and then send over the information. Now, one thing to bear in mind with mass emails is you can only send 500 at a time. So if you've got 10,000 leads, that's going to be 20 selections you'd have to make just to get all of those sent out. And you probably, or I would recommend using a means like a status column of tracking the fact that you've mass emailed all of those people. So it's definitely not a marketing tool. It's a sales tool. People get this wrong. The email functionality within Monday Sales CRM is sales related. It's definitely not for sending nice, artistically designed marketing emails. It is for prospecting and cold outreach, and it's a slightly different approach. Just be mindful, obviously, if you're sending 20,000 emails and you've done 500 at a time, that you don't upset your domain. Again, not my area of expertise, but your domain reputation does matter, and it can be impacted if you're sending or mass emailing like crazy. Cool. So the one thing that I've been dreading to come on to in this video is quotes and invoices. So I'm going to go through it. I'm going to hold my breath and we'll walk through it together. Quotes and invoices are exactly what they say on the tin. You can generate quotes and invoices from Monday.com. You can do it from here, or you can do it from the actual deals area itself. So we'll do it from here first, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So you can create new, and then either a default quote or a default invoice, or you can create new templates. So let's just use a default quote for the time being. This is what it looks like. So serial number, there's nothing you can do to change. Your recipient's locale or location you can set. So let's just say United Kingdom, Cornish. interesting. I'm going to select English. The issue date is obviously going to be reformatted, which is quite helpful. And the currency, let's say we want to set as the GBP, so the pound. Or if it's the dollar, you can set as the dollar. Now you can then add a quote description. So it's entirely up to you what description you want to add for your quote. You can upload your company brands if you want to add a logo or a signature. These are different options available to you. And then we can go ahead and enter in recipient details. So we can use preset information data source, or we can insert it manually. So if by selecting use preset information source from the leads board, I'm then going to select, let's say Stephen, and it will populate Stephen's information and then choose fields to show. So let's say I want to show the name, I want to show his email, I want to show his phone number, and that's about it. So you can see here how that works. If I want to untick one, you can do, or if I just want to do this manually, I can do as well. Now, you can then select the items, and I thought this would be the case, okay? So I've predicted this without even knowing. The product area that we had earlier that I wasn't really sure of, this is where you store that information. So you store the product information on that products board, like product 1 that we created. The SKU was 10, the price was 10,000, and then we can go ahead and obviously we can amend this information. So I've added the product, I'm then going to tweak it. So I'm going to say the quantity is 10. The SKU was, I think we did set the SKU as 10. The price was 10,000. Can add a description. Obviously, you can add adjustments here, percentage or the actual amount. So that's up to you. So let's say we're doing a very generous 10% discount. And you can add your line items from here and through your products. You can continue through all of the products that you have on your products board within Monday. And then you can add your footer note. So if you're adding this sort of stuff, you can do. And then just hit the preview button. So this is what it's going to look like. Or unpreview this. And then we go ahead and just press save. So that's kind of it. Additionally, you can use this drop down arrow and download it as a PDF. If you hit the preview, you've got this information here, and then we can close it down and we have this new quote that has been created. And that's pretty much it. So we can filter by quotes or filter by invoices. If we want to add new products or services, we can do. If we go to the main table, create new again, or default, and we can do a default invoice instead. We can create new templates as well. I suspect, looking at this, you can have different color options available to you. If you want to, and then we can change the serial number format. Oh, this is quite good actually. I'm learning. This is fairly new. This is actually a massive improvement, and I apologize for slating it earlier. So you can create new templates. So the document type being either a quote or an invoice, set the name, define your serial format. Obviously you don't have unlimited flexibility here, but you obviously have some options. The date format, the currency, the accent, color. Hopefully it gives you more options than this, just using, I think this is hex. Quote top title. Okay, so it's quite similar, but yeah, this actually does look a little bit better, to be fair. We can add price adjustments. Oh, this is nice. This is all right. I actually don't mind this at all. Good job, Monday. So obviously that you've got all of the information that I've just been through on here, selecting the source board and the source columns, but as you're creating a template, you're predefining it all, and you can select the source board. Interesting. So either you can manually add products and services on the quote or the invoice, or you can use a source board like the products and services that we saw earlier, select the name, select the price column, the description, the extra columns if needs be, and that would then populate on here. So that's quite useful. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I know I've just rushed through that, but this is fairly self-explanatory in my opinion. I'm going to exit without saving. What I'm going to go and do is head over to the deals area, and then what I'll do is go into this deal, and we can create a new quote or invoice from this particular deal itself. So create new, use the default quote, same information applies, but you're actually adding this quote to the deal itself directly, as opposed to going to the quotes and invoices area in the top left hand corner, and you'll be able to see all of the quotes and or invoices associated with the deal by clicking in here, and then you'd have a long list of quotes or deals. Some more things to note within Monday Sales CRM is we have integrations available to us. So we can integrate Gmail, Google Calendar, Outlook. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just sign in, and then you can use some basic automations like we mentioned earlier to connect everything up. That's quite straightforward. So you're more than welcome to check that out. If you need more advanced automations or integrations, then you can use a platform called Zapier or Make. It's up to you, and that will give you a lot more flexibility. The problem with these and all of the integrations is they're quite rigid. There's not a lot of options on how you want the system to work with the other platform. So you would have to either follow how Monday wants you to work, which can be quite limiting, or use Zapier or another integration tool to connect one system to another. That would inevitably give you a lot more flexibility. But Monday have got quite a lot of options available. So again, more than welcome to check that out. Now, every now and again, there are limitations to Monday.com. So quite often we would use third-party integrations, or we would use apps on the Monday.com app marketplace. You can access the marketplace by going to the three-dotted button and going to Power Ups. I'm just going to get rid of this funny thing. Go to Power Ups and then go to the app marketplace. And there are loads of apps that people have very kindly, well, they charge, by the way, there are always monthly fees associated with these apps, but you can then get a lot more functionality by using the apps than you otherwise would be able to if you didn't have the application available to you. One final thing to note is obviously it getting your data into your Monday.com system. So if you're going to leads, contacts, deals, accounts, anywhere, you'll find that there's a drop-down menu next to new account or new lead, and this is where you can import your accounts. So you can import from an Excel file or a CSV file all of your accounts into Monday.com. Now, I will warn you, it does get a lot more complicated if you have, let's say, extracted information from an existing CRM system and you're migrating over to Monday.com, because you're going to lose the connection between the account and the contact unless you know how to utilize UUIDs and unique IDs. Now, in all fairness, if you apply what we learned earlier, you'll probably actually be quite close or a step ahead, but it is a lot more complicated, especially if you've got multiple relationships with different records within the system. So just some final housekeeping bits. Within Monday.com, you've got different workspaces. So you can have different workspaces within Monday. You can create a new workspace, and then you can have other data points in there. Often we see workspaces used for, like, let's say sales, one workspace, operations, another, marketing, potentially another workspace. And then you can have your boards within Monday.com. Within Monday Sales CRM as well, you can create your own boards. So fortunately, you don't have to just use, or you're not restricted to just using what has been provided here. So if you want to add a new board, let's just create a new board using the plus button here. You can do. You can also use docs, dashboards. You can create your own forms, create your own folders as well. So now we're clear on importing data into the system, or at least how to do it. Let's think about how we get data from our Facebook ads, from our website into Monday.com. So you can use a lead form, and on the leads board, we're kindly provided with a lead submission form. It's very rudimentary, but you would obviously share this form out using the share form in the top right hand corner, distribute it to whoever you need to distribute it to, and then they can input information that would then create a lead in your system. Now, in order to edit a form, it's really, really simple. Obviously, you would go to the form area. If you're not familiar with how to create a new form, just press plus button and just hit form, and then we could go ahead and edit the form. Obviously, all of the different data points that you have on your main table will be presented here. We can click into these different options. We can hide the question if we want to. So like date unqualified and date created, we wouldn't necessarily need. So we would hide both of those questions. The source, for example, you could say, where did you find us? And they can add that information, or we can hide the question. Again, entirely up to you. And then things like phone number, let's say obviously a phone number we want to, it's an absolute necessity that we capture that information. We can make that required on our form here, same as email, hit that as required, and then we can go ahead and drag additional information, remove information. You kind of get the idea. You obviously wouldn't want to necessarily just have the form named as leads, so call this welcome, let's say welcome to CRM crew, and then it might say if you need help with Monday.com, click the button below this video, exclamation mark. And then obviously fill out the information, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. You get the idea, and then they can hit submit. Other points to note on forms, you can add or color and an image as well if you want to. So you can change the color of the form if you'd want to do that to match your website. You've got standard color options, again, upload images. You can reposition or reformat the form if you want to. So if it's question by question, different form layouts, you've got that option available to you. You can change the font and the color of the text. And then finally, you can put it to the right as opposed to the left. I know in some countries they read from the other side. I think they do anyway. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, that's all possible. And then when you go to settings at the top here, you've got a load of settings for your form. So if you want someone to be able to submit multiple forms, you can tick that. If you want people to save the form as a draft, so if they're halfway through completing information, that's also possible. If you want to keep forms anonymous, this is more of an internal thing, you can. If you want the reCAPTCHA, like annoying Google puzzle stuff, You can add that. I would never have that on a lead form. You've got response limit, so limit the amount of responses you can receive. Again, for leads, that doesn't necessarily make sense. Schedule a close date, so if you want the form to stop being able to submit or receive submissions after a certain date, you can do. Again, not something I would do. Hiding branding, I definitely would select. So this is obviously your Monday.com branding. You don't want that on your form. I find it frustrating that they leave that turned off. I think it's a bit sneaky. And then you've got form language as well. And then after submission, you can do response viewing. So allow submitters to view and download their submissions. For a lead form, probably doesn't make sense, but it's up to you. Redirect URL, this might make more sense. So if someone submits a form, it then redirects them to a video saying, hey, thanks for submitting your information, or just a page that says, thanks for submitting your information, blah, 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 blah. Here are the next steps. You can tick that if you want, and then obviously redirect them. You've got form tags. Now, if you are using this for leads, this actually might be quite helpful because you can tag where people have come from. And then obviously the lead source associated. This is obviously getting slightly more technical. So we've got some board form settings as well. So we can include the name question in the form. So that's the first thing. And you would probably in this case want to have it, or the first question, but you can turn that off if it doesn't apply. You can include the update section in the form. So you know how we had that Twitter or X function earlier on in the video where you can include that on the form. Why you'd want to, I don't know. This definitely wouldn't work for leads, but this is just form functionality generally. You've got sync questions and column titles. So if you have this turned on, that means the column name on the actual board is going to match the name on the form. So if you change the name on the form, it updates on the column and vice versa. This probably doesn't make sense, especially for leads. In most cases, it doesn't make sense because if I have on the form, it says, what is your name? Then the column is going to say, what is your name, not name or lead name. So I would tick that. I would keep that. I would keep that unticked if I was you. You've got allow creating items via form. So it's add option main board to create new items via form. I'd leave unticked. And then group answers. Where does the item populate when a new item is created? So in this case, it would be your new leads. You can then copy the link. I'm then going to search this, and then you can see here that this is what a form looks like after all the messing around I did with the way it looks. No wonder it looks so odd, but yes, you kind of get the idea. So you can also embed the form into your website if you want to. Go to share form, and then you can either copy the link if it's basic website setup, or you can actually embed it with the code as an iframe. So it's entirely up to you. Just be mindful, and the problem with Monday.com forms is they typically look absolutely atrocious on your website. There's a lot less flexibility than you would have on other platforms like Jotform, Typeform, any lead submission function like ClickFunnels, for example. So often what we would do is we would integrate, let's say, Cognito forms with Monday.com. It looks better on their website, and then when the form gets submitted, it comes into Monday.com. We'd either do that using the direct integrations we have available, or we would use a third-party integration tool like Zapier to connect the two systems together. Hopefully that makes sense. We're almost at the end of this video. We've got hard to believe, right? We've got notifications. So these are in the top right hand corner, notifications at any time you're notified about anything, where you're mentioned, and anything that's assigned to you. You've got your inbox. This relates to your updates. So anytime someone mentions you, this is where you'd be able to see it. You've got the adding new members to the system as well. So it's very easy. If you want to add someone new to your Monday.com system, you can do. You would just do it all from here. And then we have the jigsaw puzzle, which is the Monday.com marketplace, which is the app marketplace I mentioned earlier. We've got CRM settings. So we've just got some basic CRM settings. This is primarily around your email and activity setup. So you can go through here. You can see adding your email accounts. You can log outgoing emails from your Gmail or Outlook inbox directly from here, or you can only do it when you BCC this email address in that email, then it adds it to Monday.com. You can add your email signature, simple or HTML, and then select when you want to use the email signature. And then we've got email branding. This is another pertinent point to note. We want to, of course, remove Monday.com branding from your emails. Why they decide it's acceptable to leave that turned off and the Monday.com branding is always present frustrates me. And also, some people just never find this. I've seen it before where someone sent an email with their email signature and then also Monday.com's at the bottom, which not a good look. And then you've got never log. So email sent or received from the addresses and domains defined below will never be saved to your CRM. If you've got more private information, you can do that. You've got enrichment suggestions. So this is a common feature from a lot of CRM systems. I don't know how good it is. I've never been fully convinced, but essentially you put in, let's say, CRM Crew Limited. I mean, you're going to struggle with our business because there's not a lot of data out there, but let's say apple.com, and then it enriches or pulls information about, let's say, employee size, etc., etc. You can turn this off if you want to, and you can clearly see it's generated by Crunchbase. If you're not familiar with Crunchbase, it's just like a data system similar to Apollo or Lusher, stuff like that. And then we've got item association. So automatically associate contacts and accounts based on email domain. So that's quite helpful. Again, it doesn't solve our email problem that we had earlier, or the connection problem we have earlier when converting a lead into a contact and an account, but it is quite helpful. We then, now we've closed that down, we also have search functionality. So if you want to search anywhere in your Monday.com system for something, so if I want to search AAA cross boards, it will find all of the records or the emails, or let's say, I don't know if Nick at crmcrew.com does exist or not. No, it doesn't, but let's say product number 1, which is a product record we created earlier, that should exist. Or let's see, where is it? There we go, product number 1. You can see that that also is on here as well. So it's just like advanced search functionality. I would say it's actually pretty good to get everything, or try to find something within Monday. You can Command B if you're on Mac, probably Control B if you're on Windows. You've got the question mark up here. So this is just help. Hopefully this video has been enough help to get you started. And then we've got the 3x3 dotted button. This is for different products. So if you've got Monday Sales CRM and Work Management, that's where you would switch between them. And then you've got your profile information. So my profile information you can manage, email settings, you've got import data automations, developer stuff. If you accidentally delete anything, this is where you go to trash to untrash it or bring it back to life, I suppose. You've got archive. If you want to archive an item or a record or a board, like anything can be archived and then bring it back, you can do so here. Administration, that's obviously the administration of your actual system. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. Same as Teams, you can log out, and then you've got some other information here as well. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the full Monday.com sales CRM tutorial. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have or haven't covered. I don't think there is. I think we've covered a lot in this video. I appreciate there's been a huge amount of information thrown at you. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you do have any questions, drop me a comment. Can't guarantee I will get back to you, but I will try my best. If you do need any help setting up Monday.com for your business, check out the link below. I've done this so many times. This is the basics. I've not really covered anything complex. If you'd like us to help, we would love to help. So again, link is in the description below. You can apply for a meeting and potentially you and I can have a discussion about what we can do to work your system and make it even better than it already is. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.